Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. So glad to be with everybody again. So grateful you're spending some time with us. My sincere apologies for the delay in between the last video and this video. Had some real life / work things get in the way. So sincerely apologize for that. But on another administrative note, a very sincere and warm thank you to everybody. We did hit a minimum subscriber number on YouTube, so really appreciate that. It's really just the beginning, though. The minimum is just the minimum, kind of a minimum standard, and so we really need more subscriptions and more subscribers. And really thank you for all of the likes and comments as usual. Comments have been fantastic. Really appreciate that. And really, that's a perfect lead in to this particular firearm. I was all set up to do a Smith & Wesson revolver video, a 357 Magnum video, but one of the viewers commented on a past video about the Sig P225 A1 that I had done, that there was some distinct differences of what you would call the later generation A1 and the original P225, and that viewer was absolutely correct. I just did not have a lot of background experience on the 225, and actually what we have here today is a P6, and we're going to get into all those details in the deep dive. But that viewer was absolutely correct that really the two pistols, the 225, this P6, and the later generation or second generation P225A1 are really very, very different pistols and platforms. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that in the deep dive, and we will do a very light comparison to the 225A1. But this particular video is really about the original 225, or in this case specifically the P6. And again, in the deep dive here shortly, we're going to kind of dissect all that. This particular pistol has a lot of really interesting things to talk about and kind of cover and go over. And so that's what we definitely want to do here in the deep dive. So again, a very warm welcome back to everybody. Welcome again to all the current subscribers. Welcome to all of our new viewers. Please continue to subscribe. And let's go ahead and get into the deep dive on this Sig Sauer P6 pistol. So as I just mentioned in the intro, we want to take a much closer look at this Sig, in this case a P6. Which is a derivative, or really a Sig 225. And again, very interesting. I definitely, again, want to give credit to the viewer who made an excellent comment about these original 225s not really being the same as the current 225A1, the second generation gun. And we'll try to remember to do a little comparison on that right at the end. But I specifically want to talk about this particular firearm, this P6, because it's got all kinds of really, really interesting things to cover and talk about. And again, without writing a history book, but trying to give you guys some background and history, my understanding of this firearm is it's basically a derivative of the 220, the original Sig 220, just shrunk down, if you will, and as a single stack 9mm. And it was specifically designed for basically the West German police, your state police, your federal police, whatever term you would like to call it. They were, as my understanding, using old Walther firearms, and in the early to mid 70s they had decided that they needed to move to a new platform, and they had chosen 9mm as that platform. And if I remember correctly, it was Walther, H&K, and Sig who put forth solutions for that, and the West German police chose the 225, which then effectively becomes the P6. The P6 designation, the P specifically, then refers to a police-issued firearm, and you're going to see all these different markings as we walk around it. The firearms, specifically these, were basically from mid-70s to about 2000. That was their production run, and then the West German police made another change in the early to mid-2000s and moved away from their P6. I was told, or not told, but I had come across some information that over 40,000 of these were produced during their production life cycle. I don't know if that number's accurate. I don't know if it's considerably higher, considerably lower, but it's an interesting number nonetheless. And again, the West German police, choosing this firearm and utilizing it for decades, and then how they come to the U.S., which I'll kind of get into again as we walk around the markings, is very interesting. So let's kind of do that. Let's get right into the deep dive. This, of course, we have a clear and safe firearm, and we'll do that so everybody's comfortable. This is, as I stated, a 9mm single stack. Double action, single action, very traditional SIG firearm. It even has, as you can see, very traditional SIG look to it. Very elegant firearm, I think, in my opinion. I'm not sure pretty is the right word, but it does seem elegant, well thought out, the design, etc. So just kind of doing our normal deep dive and walk around, starting with the slide. Very, very interesting. This is one of the things that makes this firearm different than the 225A1 and kind of unique to itself. And one of the reasons that it won the West German police contract was because of its low cost. It was a very low cost production pistol, which obviously was very attractive to a government agency. And part of that is the slide. It's a stamped steel and welded slide. The finish, I'm not quite sure. I wasn't able to actually definitively determine what this finish is. I saw phosphate bluing as one possible finish material. I saw a comment that it was a nitron finish. I almost would wonder if it was the I want to call it the older finish, that Ilefon finish that was only used in Germany because the US, I believe it was the EPA, wouldn't allow the use of it. So if somebody knows exactly what the finishing or finished material is on the slide, that would be excellent. But it's a steel, stamped steel and welded slide. The machining is actually quite nice. It's got some nice machining through here. We've got full-length serrations on the slide. As you kind of come over the top, it's got this unique kind of flat top, almost bullet, right? Kind of image there. Very typical SIG here. And then as you kind of walk around the other side of it, again, you've got this kind of nice machining here, and again, full serrations, and we'll come back to all these numbers in a minute. But just on the slide again, you've got traditional steel sights. My understanding that these were just straight up black sights. Someone has actually painted the front sight white, so that's obviously a much easier pickup than an all black. Stamped on this side is Sig Sauer, made in West Germany. And we'll confirm that this is a West German gun in a minute as we walk around. This is an interesting stamp, and I don't know if that'll come up on camera. It's a CAI stamp. Thankfully, it's a pretty lightly embossed or marked stamp. It does not overly visual on the slide, thankfully. But this was the importer. This is how these West German guns came into the U.S. And you will see this company from time to time on a number of firearms. This one's on a SIG. I've seen it on a Beretta. It's just the mechanism or conduit to get it from Europe into the U.S. And again, thankfully, it's a pretty light stamp. It doesn't really detract from the pistol. We have to come back to this hammer because it's very unique to the P6, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But as you walk around, this is where things get pretty interesting on this side. So the first thing, we obviously have a barrel that's stamped 9mm. We also have matching serial numbers, 3 matching serial numbers, barrel, slide, and frame. Very important, and indicates that it obviously they all match, and that it is a a German or European gun, because those 3 numbers have to be there, as I understand. Model number as the P6, as a police model number, if you will. The NW indicates that it is a state police firearm for Germany, and the NW, and I'll do my best with my German, is a Nordheim Weichfallen, is what the NW stands for, and it's a region in Germany. And so that particular state region, state police region, would have been issued this firearm. And the manufacturing date is actually stamped into the pistol, which is really neat. So it states 380. So this is a 1980 manufactured firearm, and again, serial number matching. And other than that, we have a very clean, firearm on this side. There's no controls. There's no ambi controls or anything like that. But that's very, very interesting information there, and just confirms basically 100% that this was a European firearm issued to West German police, and what particular, state or region that it was actually issued to. Very cool. Okay, coming back, I guess we'll do the hammer next. So this is a very interesting hammer. There's a lot of talk about this hammer, a lot of back and forth, and I don't want to say rumors, but just interesting comments about this hammer. My understanding, and again, happy to have a correction from a viewer, is that these were only on the P6 guns. This is one indication of the difference between a traditional 225 and a P6. And from what I've been able to understand, this unique hooked hammer was there for basically an indication that if the firearm had been dropped in a certain manner, that part of this would shear off, and it would give a visual indication that the firearm had been dropped in a certain way. I don't think it gave any particular protection. The gun did have a drop safety. I don't think the shearing off of this particular part of the hammer was any, crumple zone or stress reliever. I believe it was strictly as a visual indication that the firearm had been dropped in a certain manner. Again, would love to hear from all of you on if you've got specific information on that. So again, that's kind of our walk around on the slide. Again, we can take a quick look on that. And as these steel sights, very classic in that regard. And of course, what Sig would have been using back in the 80s. Again, these were produced from the mid-70s to about 2000. This one's a 1980 version. And so I guess we also have to say this firearm is in excellent condition given its age. It's 40 plus years old, and minus now some fingerprints that we have on it. As you can see in the walk around, it is in excellent condition, and I don't believe there's any refinishing that's been done on this. The stamp and roll marks are too crisp and too original, I believe. There's a little bit of wear here up at the front, you can see, but really a very well taken care of firearm. Moving down onto the frame, this is an aluminum frame. I believe it was an anodized material that was put onto the alloy or aluminum frame. This is our takedown lever. Very flat, right? Very flat lever there, and no protrusion at all. Of course, this is a DASA platform, which we've talked about on this channel many times. So this is our decocker, and of course, this is our slide lock or slide stop. Kind of, again, moving down, very, I'd call it large trigger guards, squared off, obviously for gloved use, police use, military use. I don't believe the P6s were actually issued to any military units in Germany or Europe, but again, perhaps some viewers have more historical information on that than I do. There is no serration on the front of the trigger guard, but there's a little bit of a bevel or a hook there. You've got a nice undercut here, and then you do have some front serrations here or lines here. Just a little bit of wear right there, but the rest of the pistol looks very good. These were a polymer plastic two-piece grip that just screw in. Very nice, actually, and again, very good condition. Have a very nice texture to them. I think some manufacturers today could take notice of that. Just a very nice, grippy, but not overly so, two-piece panel. And again, we've kind of already talked about this side on the frame. There is one other very interesting point about this firearm on the frame that I wanted to show you, and we'll see if we can get it to come up on camera. Maybe I'll get my hand out of there. I don't know if that's going to focus. There are two German proof marks. And German proof marks, again, I'm not an expert on German proof marks, but again, there's indications that the gun was absolutely produced in Germany. Certain proof marks mean certain things. I was actually only able to find a listing, if you will, or an explanation on one of the two proof marks. And again, I don't think we're going to get a close-up of that. The camera won't do it. It's basically the German eagle was the only one I was able to locate. But even this German eagle stamp didn't match the German eagle stamp that I found online, that you just had a list of German proof marks. So I don't know what these two proof marks specifically mean. Here again, would love the comments if you guys can see that and can tell me what those German proof marks mean. They're the only German proof marks on the firearm, by the way, that I've found. Again, very, very good condition on this frame. Here again, I don't believe any of this has been refinished. Again, I think the markings, the stamping is just too clean and too deep to have any kind of refinishing that had been done. The magwell is not beveled. Again, we're back in the 70s when this product was designed, so it's a fairly straightforward magwell. The magazines are metal, as you can imagine, from Sig. They have the zipper or zigzag pattern on the back, the original magazine there. Again, it's an 8-round magazine, so 8+1 capacity. It is stamped P6 9mm, which is very cool. Not every magazine I've seen has that stamp. This particular firearm did not come with the original blue plastic box. The P6s, I believe, were the only firearm that was issued in this blue plastic box. As you probably know, Sig used a variety of cardboard boxes over a period of time, and cardboard with the felt, and then moved to gray and black boxes and all of that. But the P6s, as I understand, were placed in a relatively square, simple blue box. And so that did not come with that or any paperwork, unfortunately. I'm still working some different avenues to maybe locate some of that. Obviously, there won't be a serial number match, but if we can get to a period match, that would be great. The magazines are very expensive to locate, which is a little surprising to me, given supposedly the number of P6s and 225s that were supposedly made over the decades. But perhaps if they were primarily in Europe or used in Europe, and there really wasn't many of these that came over to the US, I could potentially see that's the reason why we don't have kind of this just enormous glut of magazines. So this would be one of those firearms that I think I would kind of put into a category just based again on my initial research. This one could be difficult to locate parts and spares. Again, not impossible, and again, unfortunately, you can find it, but the cost may be very high. But considering, again, this is a firearm from the 70s and 80s through the 90s up until about 2000, we are starting to have some age there, and you can have difficulty getting parts for these. A very, very nice firearm. And I know you guys also like the specs, so we'll kind of do that here, not towards the end, but let's make sure we get those in there. And I also want to come back to the barrel for a minute too, but the specs were a 26.1 ounce weight. We had a 7.1 length with 5.2 in height and about 1.3 in width, with a 3.9-inch barrel. The barrel is, what I had noted or located was that this particular era, probably the 70s and 80s, this barrel was basically designed for full metal jacket and ammunition only. At least that's its designed criteria. I'm not saying that it won't shoot jagged hollow point. In fact, you can find comments online that many people don't have any problems at all with it. But supposedly the feed ramp and part of the barrel was generally designed for full metal jacket FMJ, which would of course would make sense for Europe and that particular era as well in the mid 70s. So that's another kind of interesting little side point to this P6. But again, very, very nice firearm. I unfortunately did not get a chance to shoot it yet. I wanted to get out this video while the research and information, also from the shop owner, was fresh in my mind. I actually have not seen many of these. That was another reason that I didn't have a lot of background knowledge. This is probably only the third or fourth P6/225 that I've seen over the last several years. And this was also one of the least expensive I had found. I've got this for basically about the price of a used Glock, even less than a used Glock, maybe $50 less than a used Glock. So kind of an extraordinary little find. Again, given its condition, given its age, and I love the history. I love the matching serial numbers. I love the NW stamp. I love that you can trace it right back to the state police / region that would have been issued the firearm. And so it's great that these firearms have made it into the U.S. Via the importer, but I did not get a chance to shoot it. So maybe I'll do a kind of a secondary video on that, or if there's another comparison to another SIG, maybe I'll make those comments there. I did want to just quickly bring in the 225. Again, another clear and safe firearm. Obviously we've got some similarities there, right? It's still a 225, but granted, this is all current state 2015, 2018 kind of components and parts and all of that. Generally, I think the viewer was also correct that made the comment that the 225A1 and I think it was the 239 are really basically the same firearm, just slightly different in some of the machining on the slide, but at least internally uses a lot of the same parts. Still an 8+1, and of course the magazines don't work in each firearm. This is its own, like I said, second generation firearm, but still very interesting. I think I explained to you guys on this video just how well this gun shoots and feels. I will say that's another great point on the P6. This is, for me, a great feeling gun. The way that this, it's a thin grip. Hopefully that kind of shows up on camera. Like I said, the plastic or polymer panels are great. You've got a nice little hump here, but it's not excessive. It doesn't feel weird in the palm of your hand. You've got a nice curvature here. Not much of a beaver tail, but it's pretty deep, right? So when I grab this with my medium to small size hand, man, it just fits. And there's been other comments as well. People that have medium to small size or small to medium size hands seem to find this an extremely comfortable firearm, to the point that the hand and glove kind of feel. And so definitely that's another great feature of these P6 and original 225s. Mag release is right here, slightly extended, works extremely well, as you'd expect from a SIG and all of that. So, and I believe all the parts are also steel, right? Again, this would have been made back in the 70s, 80s, and so you've got a lot of just all metal steel components for these firearms. So again, just a really neat little find. As I stated at the beginning of the video, we're just kind of on this SIG path here, and it's really just nothing more to know. It's just coincidental. The firearms that I happen to be coming across my desk, like I said earlier, there's a SIG SP 2022 that we'll also do a video on, that also has some very interesting kind of notations and history to it. But I hope you guys like that. I hope you guys like this particular firearm. It's a great firearm. I guess prices are kind of going up as usual. The online pricing is kind of all over the place. Always difficult to really get a true estimate of that. I think generally a lot of that stuff is on the high side, but of course it provides you an opportunity to get something that you may not be able to get immediately or in your area or what have you. So it certainly serves a purpose. But I think this is a classic, local gun shop, pawn shop kind of find that, if you can locate one, the pricing is probably going to be pretty palatable. And I think really the only thing that's probably holding back an accelerated value is maybe the lack of spares. But I also, maybe it's just the fact that people don't see these very much, so there's not a lot of knowledge about them. So if you see a 225, P6 and you're a SIG guy or girl, or like full metal guns, DASA, hammer fired guns, I think you'll really like this. So thanks again for tuning in. Great to be with everybody again, and we'll see you again very, very soon on the Daily Defender.